everyone. Welcome to the May 23rd, 2018 meeting of the Township Committee of Long Hill Township. Would everybody please rise? Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Debbie, could you take roll, please?
Committeeman Maringolo?
Here.
Committeeman Schuler?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Dorsey?
Here.
Mayor Paserchia.
Present. Okay, the first thing we have here is Officer Garessi, who will be sworn in, but I'd like to do the resolution first. It's Resolution 18-160, appointing probationary police officer Garessi. I think everybody has read this, so what I'm looking for is a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Committeeman Maringolo?
Yes.
Committeeman Schuler?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dorsey?
Yes.
Mayor Paserchia.
Yes. So at this point, I'd like to, should we do the swearing in first or let the chief speak first? Chief, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, if I may just have a request a moment of silence for all the law enforcement personnel that were lost over the past week. Additionally, I don't know if this is on or not, guys. Additionally, the victims of the Route 80 bus crash in Mount Olive, along with the victims in the recent school shootings, may take a moment of silence.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the governing body, the committee members, the township administrator, for approving and allowing the Long Hill Township Police Department to maintain the appropriate staffing levels and give the appropriate care for this township. With that, I'd like to ask everybody to join us in welcoming Officer Chris Garessi. Officer Chris Garessi came to us from Wildwood Crest. He came highly recommended as a highly motivated individual, very, very high marks in integrity, loyalty, and patience. Those were the key factors or the key elements that were used to describe him. Officer Garessi completed his bachelor's degree in Kutztown University. After that, he went on to Cape May County Police Academy, where he completed Class 2 Police Academy, and then worked for Wildwood Crest just prior to coming here. He's been with us since, I believe, early March as a Class 2, and he's received nothing but very, very good reviews from his supervisors. So without any further ado, I'd like to call up Officer Chris Garessi for swearing in.
Would you like to hold the... Raise your right hand, place your left hand on the Bible, and repeat after me. I, Christopher Garessi, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States
I, Christopher Garessi, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
of the Long Hill Township Police Department
of the Long Hill Township Police Department
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Off to the fun stuff.
Thank you, Chief. But I think the camera caught a lot of hand motions there. Okay. And now, what I'd like to do is one of my favorite things that we do as mayor, is talk about an Eagle Scout who I had the good fortune to coach in baseball for several years. So, Joseph Wagner, should we have him come up as I read this, or?
You go stand up front. Use that mic.
What's that?
Go down there, use that
You
mic.
can use the mic and read it there.
Yeah, but shouldn't I read it first?
Read it, Tommy?
You guys are just trying to get rid of me. No, but I usually read it up here.
Read it
You know
where
what, let me
feel.
read it up here, and then we'll go down. All right, so this is a proclamation for Mr. Joseph William Wagner, who is now an Eagle Scout, but I'll read the proclamation. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America is a volunteer organization and is one of the nation's largest and most prominent value-based youth development organizations, and whereas Joseph William Wagner has achieved the prestigious rank of Eagle Scout due to his dedication and volunteerism in his community, Troop 59 of the Boy Scouts of America, Sterling, New Jersey, has asked that Long Hill Township join them in recognizing his numerous achievements. And whereas Joseph William Wagner has demonstrated the spirit of volunteerism through his Eagle Scout project of planning, designing, fundraising, and building a 625-square-foot paving stone patio at St. Vincent de Paul Church in Sterling. This patio provides an area for prayer and meditation with statues of the Lady of Fatima. And whereas Joseph William Wagner has been a Boy Scout since 2011, was a senior patrol leader and the chaplain's aide for the Philmount Trek, and has participated in numerous troop activities. Whereas Joseph William Wagner is a senior at Watchung Hills Regional High School and has been recognized for his academic excellence and holds varsity letters in cross-country and track. Not baseball, because obviously I wasn't a very good baseball coach. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and Township Committee of the Township of Long Hill in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, and on behalf of the residents of Long Hill Township on May 23rd, 2018, that Joseph William Wagner will be hereby recognized and congratulated on his achieved rank of Eagle Scout. Congratulations. Okay. So let's move right along into the consent agenda. Any resolution that the committee would like to pull for further discussion? Seeing none, I'd look for a motion.
Move Resolution 18-161 through 18-174 as stated in the agenda.
Second.
I'll second
Committeeman Maringolo?
Yes.
Committeeman Schuler?
Yes, however, I'm recusing from 18-165.
18-165. Deputy Mayor Dorsey?
it. Yes.
And Mayor Paserchi?
Yes. Okey dokey. All right, so I think Debbie didn't give me my little markers tonight, so I think I'm going to the right page. So this is mayoral appointment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I hereby appoint, so Shane Daly is hereby reappointed as the Emergency Management Coordinator for the Township of Long Hill, effective June 1st, 2018, for a 3-year term. And I don't want to make it so perfunctory that I just simply read that. Shane Daly has done an incredible job. I think everybody knows that. Even though she walked out in the middle of her reappointment. And Shane loves when I make her the center of attention. She has done an incredible job over the years that she has served as OEM Emergency Management Coordinator. Most recently, of course, during Riley and Quinn, where I think she was 24/7 for that period. So I personally and I'd like to publicly thank her for the work she has done, and I'm proud to reappoint her as the Emergency Management Coordinator. Okay, so we have a Township Committee appointment, and so we're going to have to take a vote on this, I believe, right?
Yes, this is
So
the-
Andrea Zambucas, who everybody knows, from Town Hall, of course, but she has volunteered very graciously to serve on the Beautification Committee. So what I'd like to do is have a motion to appoint her.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, we'll go into ordinance first reading. Township of Long Hill ordinance number 420-18, authorizing the cleanup of block 11301, lot 3, and appropriating $10,500 from the Open Space Trust Fund to cover the cost thereof. I mean, Jack, did you want to just briefly explain? I mean, we've talked about this, but the purpose of this and why it is being done.
Yes, as part of the proposed land swap with Parthenon across the street, there are some piles of debris on both properties, the property to be acquired and the property to be disposed of and conveyed to Parthenon. We've been unable to identify the source of those materials, so the agreement with Parthenon is that each party will clean up its own site. The pile on the township property is clean, so that there's no problem with that. And this money appropriates money, or this ordinance, I'm sorry, appropriates money from the Open Space Trust Fund in order to pay for the cleanup of the township's property that is being conveyed to Parthenon.
Thank you, Jack. So this is first reading. Public comment is more than welcome when we go to second reading and the passing of this ordinance, which will be June 27th. The June 27th meeting is when second reading will be. So I think at this point, we could just look for a motion.
Motion to introduce ordinance 420-18 on first reading with second reading on June 27th, 2018. Matt?
Oh. I second.
Committeeman Maringolo?
Abstain?
Committeeman Schuler?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dorsey?
Yes.
Mayor Paserchio?
Yes. So now we're going to go into discussion items. I did want to announce, I had said at a previous meeting that I was going to try to get the DEP to come tonight to discuss the property that is commonly referred to as Tifa. Unfortunately, they had a conflict, but they were kind enough to send a very detailed explanation for how that process works. And we haven't posted it on the website as yet. I just want to get confirmation that we will post it. And we will probably as early as tomorrow. So if anybody came here tonight for that, to hear from the DEP, you will not hear directly from the DEP tonight, but I think a lot of questions that people have had and still have, or even questions that they're not aware that they have as yet, will be posted, I hope, tomorrow or at the latest on Friday. So the discussion items, if we could, I think, Nancy, do I turn this over?
Yep.
To you? So we have 3 discussion items, the Traffic Advisory Committee, schoolhouse bid proposal, and the long-awaited, this is 7 years in the making, energy audit.
Okay. I don't know if this is on. Dennis, my light's not on. I don't know if this is working.
Changes mine.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so actually, the Traffic Advisory Committee met on Monday, but I have this split up into my administrator's report and into discussion items because this first part you need to act on. Well, we met on Monday to discuss 3 issues, but one was Railroad Avenue. As you will remember, we conducted a survey and there was a 50-50 split on whether or not to make the north side of the street a no parking zone. That would be east of Main Avenue. One of the main concerns expressed by the residents then was whether emergency vehicles could get down the street when there are vehicles parked on both sides. So last week, the police chief and the 2 fire chiefs and several firefighters and police officers brought fire trucks to the street to make sure they could adequately access the road. Fortunately, they were able to do so even with cars parked on both sides. However, there is one section of the road which is across from the fire hydrant, that both fire chiefs feel should be made into a fire zone with no parking allowed at any time. It is a 97-foot stretch across the street from 249 to 253 Railroad Avenue. I printed it out on a map. It's about halfway down the street. Okay. So it's a 97-foot span that they would like to make a fire zone with no parking allowed at any time. And if you agree to do this, it's the Traffic Advisory Committee's recommendation, as well as the 2 fire chiefs and the police chief. We would need to introduce an ordinance to establish the zone.
Why is that larger than traditional fire zones?
So on the opposite side of the street, on the southern side of the street, there is one section that has Belgian block curbs. So apparently, and I think the fire chief is here, one of the chiefs, and the police chief is here. So if I'm leaving something out, you can fill in. But as it was explained to me, because that one section has the Belgian block curb, people park on that side further into the street than they do where there's grass curbs.
But how's that different than like a city block where there's curbing on both sides of the street?
Right,
You only have
so-
to carve out maybe
so-
10 feet on each side.
So this street is only 19.5 feet wide, the whole length of the street. So when they went down there with the ladder truck needs stabilizers to put out, right? So when the ladder goes up, it's steady. When they put the stabilizers out, when they have to open the cabinets, there's not enough room when you've got the granite curb on one side and you've got a car parked on the other. So for that particular area of where the granite curbing is 97 feet, and that's why they wanted to make it a,
Nancy, thanks very much for the explanation. If I could, if you don't mind, if I
yep.
could impose on the chief, both chiefs, if they can.
If I could just ask a quick question. So the fact that it's purely coincidental that the fire hydrant is there, it's
think
not
so.
a question of requiring distance on either side of the fire hydrants. It's just a question of that area of the street is too narrow to deploy the ladder truck.
well, that part of the street is the one that, well, you know what, I'll let them speak for
The
themselves.
other question I have is how big is the right-of-way on that street?
I don't know about the
I don't
right-of-way, but what happened is we actually staged the fire truck there and had it extend the stabilizers out. And it's basically the area between 2 telephone poles. I could forward. We took some pictures and there are some videos of the testing procedure. If you could say, we did on a Friday night, which was expected to be one of their busier nights. Both fire trucks traveled down the road, turned around, traveled back where they needed to set up in front of the fire hydrant. It would have not been possible if there was vehicles directly across from the fire hydrant. The issue is that area has Belgian block, and where the other areas they can park a little bit on the grass, they can't do it with the Belgian block, so they're forced to step out more into the road. And then the other side obviously causes a bottleneck of that area. So on the advice of the 2 fire chiefs, they would need that work zone near the fire hydrant.
But the ladder truck is only going to set up there if the fire's there, right? If the fire is down the block, the ladder truck is going to set up down the block. Are you able to deploy the ladder truck down the block as well?
Yeah, we can deploy it from either side.
Even with the cars there?
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as the truck is in the center of the road, we can access. You know, the only problem is if we were to get a bigger ladder truck down there, like a 100 class, ours is a 75
Right.
foot. So if we got a 100 class, it probably will not do it because the outriggers are much wider spread.
Right.
But other than that,
What's the width of the outriggers?
not 100% sure on the width of it. I'd have to look back at the specs.
Is it more than 19 and a half feet?
No, it's
No, can't.
probably, well, it's a 75-foot stick, so it's probably a little less than half of that, so. I would say probably about 19 feet, yeah.
So,
But you have to put the truck in the center of the road or else.
well, I'm just questioning whether the road is not wide there because of some action that the Belgian block is interfering with the right-of-way, is all I'm thinking. You know, because the road's narrow there where it's wider everywhere else.
I think the key is the fire hydrant, the presence of the fire
Well,
hydrant being
but the
there.
truck,
He's
the
saying
truck,
that-
the truck is not going to deploy by the fire hydrant. The
Unless
truck
the
is going
fire's
to
right
deploy,
there.
the truck is going to deploy by the house on fire and run a hose to the hydrant.
Well, they can also,
Correct?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The truck is not going to deploy by the hydrant. The truck is going to deploy by the house fire.
Yeah, so there could potentially either be where we would have to hit the hydrant and then lay down the road, or hand jack it from if it's up
Right.
by towards the hotel, we would either have to hit that hydrant
Right.
or one on the corner of,
So in your opinion, the only place that you have a problem deploying the truck with cars parked is at that one section? That's kind of what we're trying, I think what we're trying to get to is I'm not sure you can deploy that truck anywhere down that road with cars parked on both sides, can you?
if the, and I know I was talking to somebody, you guys were looking at doing a white line or a line and can't park anything over that. I think that's a good idea.
we didn't look at that. The DPW director said that would not be a good idea. But it is a little confusing. I actually spent the last week trying to figure this out, trying to get an explanation of this. It is a little confusing because for the most part, it's the engine that's going to be by the fire hydrant, right? Even though you have the capability with the ladder. And it's 19 and a half feet, the whole length of the road. So if it can't be stabilized there, then it can't be stabilized anywhere. So I'm confused myself, and I've been asking.
I think the part that's confusing is, it's 19 and a half feet all the way down. There's some, branches are sticking out that we said we can clear or have Tom clear, that's no problem. That area, because of the Belgian block, all the other people that parked off onto the grass. So they're partially on the roadway, partially on the grass. That area, they don't have that option because of the Belgian block. So that's the significance of the Belgian block. It just happens to be in front of the fire hydrant. So that's probably where they're gonna be doing a lot of their work. But my understanding is Joe, the chief, also set up further down the road and there was no issues. So that's the only issue, is that
So then doesn't it make sense to do no parking on the Belgian block side as well?
well, it's already no parking because there's already Title 39 for the Belgian block, or for the fire hydrant. So,
Okay.
So we're okay there. We have clearance or laws put in place for that, so we should be all right on that side.
I'm okay with that. I mean, my only concern is making sure that there's enough coverage down the entire street. Now that I understand that it seems to be okay everywhere else, I'm fine doing no parking at the recommended area. I mean,
We have no choice, it's a safety issue.
yeah, I mean,
And our experts, our chief, both fire chiefs and the chief of police, as well as the traffic advisory committee, have all concurred, so I'm not going to counter what they said, so.
the ordinance next meeting?
So we're right, we'll introduce the ordinance in the next meeting.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, chief.
Thanks, guys.
So I said I would
Doesn't matter for now, we
Okay.
have enough.
So, related to that, to Railroad Avenue, the Township Committee had asked for an updated price to determine the presence of wetlands on the two lots where the parking for the train station currently is, and the Township Dome lot down at the end of Railroad Avenue on the south side of the street, so that you could possibly offer alternative parking sites. The quote that we have for those three lots is $6,950, but that is for a wetlands determination sketch, a wetlands delineation, which would include a survey, and a DEP LOI application, which is a letter of interpretation. But according to Paul Ferraro, we really only need the first step, which is $1,950. So that would show a sketch of where wetlands are, and then you could determine, with the engineer, whether or not parking would ever be allowed on any of those spots, additional parking.
I just have, Jack, you might be able to answer this. One, in wetlands, can you put recreational stuff there?
No.
No, can you put impervious structures there? Like a geogrid block or something like that, or gravel?
Not impervious, no, you
I mean, put gravel, I mean.
Pervious.
Ordinarily, no.
Oh.
Because of the DEP regulations.
Right. I mean,
You can't do much of anything.
do we need anything more than maybe Paul to walk out there for 30 minutes and look around and say, yeah, maybe, no,
Well, Paul
probably not?
he's already done that, and he
Do we
said,
have that vibe?
Paul said, there's no way, but, if you want something official.
I mean,
You also have, you're not on planning board anymore. I don't know if anybody else has seen this, but there was a parking memo done, this committee had asked the planning board to do a parking study, and I don't know if you've gotten this or not, but there was I guess it's only in draft form, so maybe not. There's a parking review done by the planning board engineer. He did not look, I don't know if he wasn't asked or whatever, but he didn't look at that lot down at the end. He only looked at those two plus the American Legion. And he basically concluded the same thing that Paul has been saying, that it's wetlands, but he didn't really go out there. Paul has been out there. But I know you've been discussing this for a really long time, so if you want to put out the $1,950 to get the official determination, from the consultant.
If two certified engineers have said it's wetlands.
it's one of those things where you look at it and you say, all right, it's between a road and a railroad. How can that be like something you want to preserve? It doesn't.
It's a pile of rocks.
And if we think it's gonna be wetlands, and it sounds like we do, and we don't think we have a chance at the DEP saying, we'll let this one go, I mean, why spend the money? I mean, that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to think about this for a little bit, go look at it again.
Yeah, I'm not willing to spend any money on that today.
Yeah, I think we have consensus, Nancy.
So not today? Okay.
Maybe you can talk to the DEP and
You know what? I'll
find
find,
something.
yeah, why not?
Just explain, it's between.
They're very responsive.
Will they let it go for that type of a location? I mean, it's a
And I
little-
won't say it's wetlands, I'll say we think it's possible that it's
Yeah,
wetlands. Okay.
it's a strip between a railroad right-of-way that, by the way, used to be a railroad right-of-way back in the day, right? With Jack,
Yeah.
wasn't that?
Hence the name, yes.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll offline just ask, and we'll see where we go with that.
Okay, and from what I understand, the planning board is going to finalize that report, or it's going to be presented to the planning board in an upcoming meeting. So once it is, then you will all get copies, since you're the ones who asked for it. And then you can
Okay.
read that, and it's got color-coded pictures and things, so it might shed some more light.
Yeah, I had a water. Did Jack steal my water?
No.
You stole my water. I stole your water. All right, no, carry on, Nancy.
Okay, so the next,
No, here it
next
is. Put it back.
item on the agenda is the schoolhouse bid proposal. You had all recently authorized me to put a bid package together to rent out the 2 offices on the non-historic side of the schoolhouse. So in order to do so, I calculated the monthly rent, and you had agreed on a rent of $20 per square foot. So the offices are 154 square feet and 210 square feet. So then the monthly rent would be $256 a month and $350 a month. And if the utilities are included in the rent, then that eats into the rent that we would be collecting. So before I put the bid out, I wanted to confirm with you that you think it's worth renting these, becoming a landlord basically for $7,200 a year.
Less expensive.
What about
expensive.
the common area?
We rent that, well, you can't really rent it out for an office or for somebody, it's not secure, it's open, but you know that we use it for yoga classes and summer
No,
camp.
no, you mentioned the 2 offices, but there's an open space outside of those offices. And
Oh,
then-
you're saying the common area between the 2 offices, like the
Right.
kitchen area, whatever?
Right.
You're saying include that in the rent, include that in the square footage?
And the hallway area is a common area.
Well, when you're figuring out square footage, I don't know, Jack, do you know this? Are you supposed to include that in the actual square footage that they're paying
Yeah, it usually gets.
at the same amount of money?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's the 2 offices, the open area, the common area, right? All of that. So what's the total square footage we're talking about?
I don't know. So I'd have to go back then. So let's say that increases it. So let me ask it this way then. What is the minimum amount that you think that,
Why
we
don't
have to
find-
we have to put a minimum in the
Why
bid.
don't we find out what the total square footage is, then we can figure out how much the potential rent is, right? Then we can have some numbers to discuss this, because without that, we don't know what we're talking about.
And we're including utilities in this?
Well, there aren't separate meters, so in order to do that, you'd have to do a calculation on the square footage of the whole building and then how much it costs to heat, or, right, a
So
percentage.
do we know what that percentage number is of what it's gonna cost us to?
No.
Like, are we collecting $14,000 in rent and paying $12,000 in utility fees?
That's what, if I pay 15.
Well, we have no way of
Kinda
knowing
where
how
I'm
much
going with that.
we have no way of knowing how much the HVAC costs are because it hasn't worked for the
Right.
last 5
Right.
years.
It only started working.
It is
Sometimes they
working,
run
right?
Knock
together.
on wood, it's working right now, so.
Sometimes they both run.
Okay, so I will put something together, including the
Thank you.
common area.
All right, so we'll hold off discussing.
Okay, the next thing that's on the agenda is the township energy audit.
Yay.
So this has been going on for a long time. As you mentioned, they performed audits of 9 municipal facilities. The company's TRC. They made various recommendations, mostly their LED lights and light sensors. There is a cost to do all the work. Overall, for all of the facilities, the cost is about $450,000 to make all the improvements that they recommended. That would result in annual savings on our electric bills of $78,000 a year, which means we'd make back our investment in about 6 years on average. There are, it's separated by facility, so you could do some, you could not do others, whatever you chose to do. But the company wanted to know, to set up a meeting to go over the results, and I wanted to know if anybody would like to attend that, or if you'd like me to ask them if they would come to a meeting, because I assume they'd come to a committee meeting and talk about this if you want. This is in your packet, which goes over building by building, what the recommended improvements are, and what it would save in kilowatts per hour, what it would save in dollars, what the initial cost would be to do it. They give an incentive. That $450,000 is after the incentive, and then what the estimated savings would be and how many years it would take to get that back. And then on the last page of the spreadsheet, it gives you an overall encapsulation of all of them together. So, as you see, it's $450,000 about after the incentive of $43,000. You would save $78,000 a year, so get your money back in an average of 6 years.
6.4 years. So the public is aware of what this is. This was something we discussed several committees back, probably in 2011. The state does an energy audit, and they'll come back with these recommendations as Nancy just described. It might be putting LED lights throughout Town Hall, and then if the cost is X, depending on the particular item, the state covers a portion, and then the town covers a portion, and then we'll give the payback period. So say it's, the town puts in $50,000, the state puts in $50,000. In order for the town to recover the $50,000 that it put in, it might say something like 3.8 years. Beyond that, of course, it's all savings to the town. And that's the reason we did this audit. Many towns have done this. The school, in fact, Bruce, when you were on the school board, I think
Yeah, probably about 5-6 years ago, maybe.
and there were programs that the school went forward with, I believe.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly, but yeah.
And the library has already gone forward with a couple
So,
of items
right.
as well.
Yeah, I should mention that the municipal building and library are listed here as one, but the library got a separate audit, and they started, I think they put in the LED lights, and they've started saving money already. I should also note on here that under street lighting, they have zero cost to us, and that's because there is a program at JCP&L, which we're waiting to get more information on. JCP&L would install LED lights. I think that they are not as bright as the streetlights we currently have, which maybe is why there was an objection. But it would save $8,500. Well, that's what I was told.
Not for me.
No, well, yeah. So that would save $8,500 a year, but wouldn't
Prince
cost
of
us
Darkness
anything.
speaks.
One other interesting item I'm looking at is there's a significant dollar value of savings with the pumping stations for the sewer plant. And 2 of them, I believe, are scheduled for a retrofit anyway, right? 2 pump stations, I think, have to, we put
We were
as
gonna
part-
do it anyway.
it was part of the bid process, so they're probably slated to have the work done as part of the 7.2 million. So some portion may happen anyway. They're projecting a $24,000 a year electrical savings just by doing some stuff to the pump motors, so,
Sounds good to me, considering we have to do it anyway.
yeah.
So did
Okay.
you want them to come to a meeting, or did you want me to set one up, and did anybody want to
Well, I think
attend?
the public deserves to hear, no? I mean, is that something?
Do we have this up on the website yet?
Not yet, no.
Can we throw this up there?
Sure, I mean, if it's okay.
I mean, I'd like some time to digest this a
No
little bit as
doubt.
well, and, I mean,
Do you,
Bruce suggested I make a spreadsheet, but it's already in spreadsheet form.
can you color code it?
Yeah, for you,
Well,
sure.
we did this, so we have it on Excel if you'd like to.
No, I know. No, I'm good, thank you.
So how would you like to proceed? Just, let's think about this for a little bit. It's
yeah,
7 years in the making, so what's another few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we can ask Randy if he can come up with a way to fund this in terms of financing.
This year?
I don't know, can we do it this year now that the budget's approved?
No, I don't know.
Right,
Until
so it
November.
would have to be for next year?
And if memory serves me, we're probably getting late in the year, believe it or not, anyway, to implement any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Per their program. I think you have to get an executable plan to them. So I think it's next year anyway.
I mean, there may be some low-hanging fruit here, like, LED lights. I mean, like, come on in, swap the light bulb, put an LED bulb in, right? That stuff we can possibly chew off. Some of the bigger stuff would have to happen, next year, and we can talk about, doing some type of bonding where the projected annual savings is used to pay off the bond. Right? So if the payoff, if the straight line payoff is 6.5 or 7 years, maybe with interest, the payoff is 8 years. And you have it almost self-fund because you're gonna be reducing your operating budget by that much. So we can talk to Randy about that and figure out how to make those numbers work.
Okay.
Because there's clearly a long-term savings on this stuff. And electricity is a sizable portion, a meaningful portion of our budget.
And of course, the environmental benefit is something
Right.
which we haven't discussed
Right.
as well.
Okay.
Okay. So Nancy, you get to speak again.
I have a report. You had asked, or actually, no, I talked at the last meeting about Cantor Park Trail. We are having difficulty getting permeable asphalt, which is what's required now to complete the path. So Paul Ferraro asked me to ask you if you would approve using a fine stone dust, it's kind of like gravel, to complete the path, because otherwise we'd be waiting. He's not sure how long to get the permeable asphalt, and we'd like to get the path done. So,
Yes.
okay.
I was just gonna ask if Lisa has an opinion on this, as far as the difference between the two surfaces in terms of being a walking path.
Well, it's not ideal, but you can't get the other stuff.
Decisions that you have no choice in are very easy to make.
I heard having trouble getting, I didn't hear can't get.
Right, having trouble getting.
Once
My
he gets
guess,
it, once they get it, you can put it down. But until such time, which we don't know when,
Well, I think
put
it's,
the dust down.
is the dust a temporary solution or permanent?
I think it was meant to be a permanent. I mean, I suppose you could remove it once.
I spoke to him today, I thought it was temporary.
Well, if it's temporary, then sure.
Yeah, put it down, and then when we can get the stuff.
Yeah, okay, he didn't tell me it was temporary,
Yeah.
but,
I mean, that's the impression I had, so.
my guess is that Lisa would say a gravel path is better than no path.
I'm just asking.
Nah, no, I'm guessing. So I will find out if it's temporary. Does it matter to everybody if it's temporary? It's gonna change your mind,
If it's temporary, I'm totally fine with it, and if Lisa's okay with it, I'm fine with
even permanently.
it, even permanently, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with
defer to her
the
judgment
plan,
on
if
that.
possible, to
Yeah, I have no
complete it.
bias for or against the surface, but I don't want to shortchange what the end goal is.
Keep in mind, we promised the seniors
I know.
when we built the turf field that it would be done soon. So hopefully this qualifies as soon.
Okay, so speaking of trails, I know that we'd spoken about this before, but I just wanted to give a little update on the trail. I guess, is it called Passaic Park across the street? The Curves?
No official.
No official
No
name.
official name?
official title.
Okay.
Unofficial Passaic Valley, yes.
Unofficial
Okay.
Central Passaic Valley curse.
So the Vision Committee had expressed a desire to apply for a trail grant to construct a trail from, in the vicinity of Railroad Avenue through to Town Hall, basically. There are quite a few steps that would need to be taken before we can apply for the grant, and they are pretty time intensive, including various permits from the DEP, which would probably take 3 to 4 months from the time of submittal alone. So it does not look like we're going to be able to apply for a 2018 grant, but we are taking steps to apply for 2019.
And I would strongly encourage us to apply. There's money available at the county. They're encouraging towns to do so. So I don't want to miss this opportunity, especially since now we've had a change in administration. And if anything, I would think they're more environmentally aware down in Trenton now regarding environmental issues. And we had gone down, I forget who from the committee went with me, but I had gone down with Paul Ferrara and Don Farnell and a few other folks down to meet with the DEP several years back. and they were open to the idea of trails. For those who aren't aware, it's about 72 acres on the Central Park property across the street, but about 9, how many were developable? About 9, 8 more? No, it ended up being more. It was more than 4, so, say it was 8. 8 developable, so you have 64 acres that are considered wetlands, but the DEP was open to the idea of natural trails through the park to accomplish what it is the Vision Committee has recommended. So this is critical, and by natural, you can have maybe some wood things, much like boardwalks that are in the Great Swamp, and they're expensive. So any money we can get from outside sources would be critical. So if I don't want this to fall, that's a long-winded way of saying, please don't let this go onto the back burner. If we're not going to make it for this year, and I understand, what's the deadline? Something like June 15th? June 1st. I appreciate it. We won't make it for this year, but let's start the process so we are not in that situation again for the 19 funding round.
Right, so the first step is, before we can apply for permits, somebody has to walk the path and mark it for which way the path is gonna go. So, that would enable Paul to put together a cost estimate, because once the path is marked, it's basically, you mark it with surveyor ribbons. And once that's marked, Paul can see the length and how many trees would have to come down, and that would determine the cost, obviously. And then we would need a wetlands general permit for a path on public property. It says that we can basically put the path where we want, however, we need to avoid trees as much as possible. Actually, we can't remove the trees. He says no trees can be removed
That's what I thought.
for the path, so it would have to wind around the trees, but the brush would have to be removed. We need a flood hazard area individual permit for work in the floodplain and riparian zones, as well as permits for any of the ditches that are crossed. We could probably put small pipe culverts in the ditches, but the DEP may require more sophisticated structures, and we won't know that until we submit the permit. And we need to have the path construction needs to be permeable material unless we do stormwater management design, which does not make sense given the scope of this project. So we have to confirm that DEP would consider a gravel surface to be permeable in this instance. So by the time we get all that information together, and then it takes 90 to 120 days from the time you submit the permits to the DEP.
Which is why it's better, the
Right.
sooner we start, the better.
Right.
I haven't been back there in a couple of years, but maybe Riley and Quinn helped us out. Took down a
Maybe.
few trees.
Probably not. They probably dropped them where you need to go.
Yeah, but then you can remove them.
Don't be too sure about that.
So I just have a
Fair point.
couple more things. We just spoke about the energy audit for the municipality, but the mayor had asked me to look into a service where, that he heard other towns are providing for their residents, where a company performs energy audits in people's homes for a reduced fee. I spoke with the administrator in Madison, because Madison is one of the municipalities that does it. They have contracted with a company to perform audits to uncover opportunities to improve energy efficiency. So they look at things like your hot water heater, your windows, things like that, and then they make recommendations. Through the contract that Madison has and several other municipalities, the residents pay $49 per audit rather than the ordinary $99 price, so it's 50% off.
Do we have to put money into that, or they just?
We don't put any money into it, but if you want to look into it for the residents, we have to issue an RFP, and then there's various companies that do that. They'll bid on, I guess, lowest cost to the residents.
Oh, so one doesn't cost us any money, might as well give it a shot.
And I assume that's an optional program.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for example, this one company, the company that was the, I guess, lowest bidder for Madison was called Ciel, C-I-E-L, And I went on their website, and you fill in your address, and you pick an appointment, and they come out. So it is 100% voluntarily. You don't even have to go on and look at it if you don't want to. But there's a little video of one of the council people in Madison who did it, and she was thrilled with the outcome. It should be noted that that particular company also offers to do the repairs or the improvements.
Yeah, but
And
that's up to
that
the
is
resident.
up to the resident,
Right.
and they're under no obligation to use the company to make the improvements.
So what's the process? We RFP it?
We put out an RFP, and then these companies will put in bids. So I believe what they're bidding on is what they charge the residents. So it'd be the lowest bidder. And then we'd sign paperwork with them, and then they could, I guess,
Advertise, probably.
yeah, advertise on our website probably, and then people can voluntarily sign up.
Sounds good. Everyone fine with that?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. I have two more things. So as I said earlier, the Traffic Advisory Committee met, and we already discussed Railroad Avenue. But previously, we've talked about the problem of people making left turns on Lackawanna Boulevard to avoid the light at Morristown Road. So you would authorize looking into putting a left arrow from Valley onto Morristown, because if there's a left-only arrow, it will reduce the traffic, and maybe people will be less likely to make the left onto Lackawanna. We spoke with the county engineer, and the light that is there is currently there is at least 40 years old, and will need to be replaced. Because the entire light would need to be replaced, it will cost a little bit more than we thought, presumably. So we may not have enough money. We budgeted our $30,000 share in this year's budget. It may not be enough, so it may be put off till 2019 so we can add additional money.
How much additional money?
We don't know yet. So it may not. It may come in at what we thought was $100,000, but it may come in 110, 115. The engineer wasn't sure.
Right.
It's just that the light is so old that the whole thing has to be replaced. But to get the process rolling, I sent a letter to the county asking them to review the intersection, and then, assuming they say they will, which the engineer said they would, they will pay for the study. They'll look at the volume and traffic movements, and eventually go out to design the.
Okay.
And we have to wait and get that back, and then get the costs, because they can't give us the cost till they do the design.
I apologize, Nancy. The town's portion of the cost is what?
30%.
30%.
So it's on 3 sides.
Right.
It is county. I guess the Hillcrest side is county.
And we were going under the idea that it's maybe 100,000, but if it, let's just say, and I throw out a number, if it ends up being 120, so you're talking about an additional $6,000 for a safety improvement. I mean, isn't there a way to find, and I made up a number, I admit, but if it's a nominal increase.
In November.
Yeah, you can't transfer until November, and, there's really no point in talking about it until we have the cost, because the engineer said, a lot of times it comes in lower than she thinks, so it might be the 100,000.
I still can't believe a traffic light costs $100,000, but anyway.
Well, but there's a lot more to it, though. There's the light, the big light, and then there's the little lights on the side, and then there's
Light
the
has
sign.
It's a light.
Yeah.
There's,
We
there's,
know what the
I mean, the
Walgreens
one,
light
the one
costs.
out, and they call them smart lights, but the one out here never works. I come driving down Valley Road at 1 in the morning and the light turns red for me. There's no other cars around.
I don't know about anybody else. I want to know why Cornell is driving down the road at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Mind your own business.
You know what's amazing about that light that we're trying to replace? The night of Sandy, because I'm dumber than a box of rocks. I was out, and when I drove down Mountain to try to come back to Town Hall, that light was spinning around like a top. And the next day, when we drove around with Tom Sweeney, that light was halfway towards the senior center. So the thing just spun around. So it's amazing that it's.
lasted.
Yeah.
Well, it's been taken off, I think, a couple of times by tractor trailers. It's, pieces have been replaced apparently, but, it's been
Some
through a
from
lot.
Sandy. I know.
I will ask this question, only because if we're redoing the light now, we might as well ask it. So heading south I don't know if there's anything that the county can do to look at adding a left turn lane, which may require some widening. I don't know how the county goes about that, but there are a lot of cars that make a left onto Valley, coming off a mountain. And you're kind of stuck there.
No doubt.
If the first car makes the left,
I drive it every day.
right?
And sometimes people move over because they're aware of it, and you can sneak by.
More often not.
Right.
And I mean, I look at the intersection and I realize there's a lot involved in it, but I look to the left and I see like 12 feet of rocks, right? Gravel
This is
on
by
the,
the,
as the sidewalk, right? They may have repaved it, but on that corner. So I don't know if they can widen.
by the gas station. Are you talking about
Well,
the
yeah,
other side.
yeah.
The other side?
Yeah.
So coming from Warren up,
No, coming from the Gillette train station, south, towards Valley Road. There's no left turn lane. It's one lane each direction.
oh, so the ground.
So
okay.
if
One car.
you're heading south, waiting to make the left, everything just backs up.
Okay.
The other
Most people are
If we're
going
looking at the
straight.
intersection, let's just look at the intersection. There may be nothing
The
that
other
can be done
side
about it.
going north has a delayed green,
Correct.
so they can make a left without a problem. But
Right.
when you're heading south, there is no delay.
Right.
You know, so you're basically stuck.
Right.
But
And-
isn't that
and-
ours?
And what
Isn't that
happens?
our property that there?
No,
No,
That's not our road?
private.
it's private property on all four
No, I
corners.
mean, the road is ours.
No, both
No, no.
both are county.
Yeah, mountain and
Right, then I'm thinking.
Both in
of-
Valley.
is county, yeah, that's right.
Right, so what winds up happening is because the cars have to stop and wait for the left, they cut through, what's that side road that goes to Lackawanna?
Jersey?
Gillette.
Jersey? Is it
Yeah, the
Jersey?
one by the church.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so everybody makes the right,
What is it?
Summit, thank you. Everybody makes the right onto Summit, and then winds up going down Lackawanna, creating the whole problem that we have on Lackawanna. And it's all about the convenience. You're sitting there waiting because there's 10 cars in front of you when the person's waiting to make a left.
Yeah. And you never have a delay. It would be interesting, I don't think you have delay both sides, but the thing is, the delay should be coming north in the evening, and the delay should be going south in the
Well,
morning.
you can't do a south delay because if
Stick to finance, dude.
yeah.
I'm not an engineer, okay.
So if they could just look at it,
Yeah.
you know, they may say, oh, no, we don't touch that anymore, or, oh, maybe it's time that we look at widening that.
We can ask.
Yep.
Yep.
I'll ask. Okay, and one of the, pending issues from the Traffic Advisory Committee was, at the intersection of Long Hill and Mountain. The line of sight was obstructed, making it a difficult intersection, when turning mostly from Long Hill onto Mountain. So there is approximately 400 feet of trees and brush, that would have to be cleared. Here, I don't know if you can see it.
Do we really need to clear all 400 or just a few?
Well, so the county engineer said that this is the line, it's 400 feet. In order to see the cars coming here, when you're turning, it needs to be the whole 400. She said that if you want to do less, of course you could do less, but for it to be optimum, you'd need to go the full 400 feet. So, the first step would be to look at, for Paul, for our own Tom Sweeney, to go out and walk the site and mark the trees to see which trees would have to come down.
So this is going from
This is
Long
Long
Hill
Hill,
south
Mountain.
onto Mountain.
Are the trees in the right of way?
Pass this down. So, it's our property,
Oh, okay.
but they want to mark the trees to see how many would be taken down, and then Shade Tree has to have their input. Here's some more individual pictures where you could see, looking at the actual trees.
Yes, I drive that every day.
So the Shade Tree Commission would have to have their input, and then
Yeah, this is the best picture.
Yeah, because right, this is the one where they're allowed to go up, they don't have to stop. Right, so when you're here, that is a fair point, you're constantly nudging out, but to see whether you can.
Yeah, you're right,
whether
you're
if
right
going
here,
s-
to the left.
If it-
Yeah, I know, yeah, it's a bad intersection, no doubt.
And for those who are listening at home, this is the Long Hill Road where it comes, where Mountain comes up,
Right by Myersville Road.
and Myersville,
Yeah,
that's right.
As you're heading east on Long Hill, with that right turn down onto Mountain, and Mountain coming north does not have a stop sign.
Right, and you can't
So
put a
you're-
stop sign because of the
Yeah,
hill.
because it's uphill, right.
Yeah.
Right, now I understand.
Did they discuss Mountain and Morristown too, or not?
No.
That one kind of rectified, we cut back, but they don't maintain it all the time, that's the problem.
Where Morristown hits
Coming
Mountain.
Straight up here.
Yeah, yeah,
Making the left and stuff,
Yeah.
no doubt.
We could put that
I
on.
mean, I see a couple of chainsaws and a bulldozer, I mean.
Well, it's township property, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So, the
Good.
process would be for them to identify the trees that would have to come down, get the input from the Shade Tree Commission, and then, we plan on using, the Marsh County Co-op to clear the site because, those trees are too big for DPW to take down. They could help with the brush and the, grading, but the trees would have to be, done through the Marsh County Co-op.
By chance, do we know what kind of trees they are, did you say?
I'll straight tree, we'll
We
figure
don't know
that
yet.
If they're ash trees, they're gonna,
They're coming
gonna
down
die anyway.
Right.
out. How we deal with this on budget, because we didn't put this in the budget, but does Tom have some place to put this?
I didn't think that this would be happening this year.
Okay.
I don't think that it, we did not budget this, so, unless there's some kind of grant we can get from the county, we can always appeal to them.
Yeah, I know, Cornell, November.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I don't
Tom
know.
does have a budget
Hmm.
and does have miscellaneous work, so I don't know whether or not
Well,
it's in or
you'd be-
not and how much we're talking about, right?
Well, because we didn't even talk about that because, honestly, I have no idea how much it would cost.
Right.
And that nobody can give an estimate until we see how many trees there are. And Tom has a, schedule or whatever of how wide the trees are in diameter and how tall they are, how much they are per tree based on that. So once they find that out, he can figure out how
Yeah.
much it would cost, at least an estimate.
And depends, maybe we get lucky, maybe we got a tree in there worth something.
Worth something?
Possible.
Yeah, you get a couple of the right pieces of wood in there and they'll you can get somebody to come take it for nothing,
Oh, okay.
because the wood has
True story.
market value.
Okay.
We don't have that much of it around.
Ash.
No, ash is
Oh.
not one of them.
Yeah, I know.
I was thinking black walnut or something like that.
So the last thing that I have is, yesterday was our band sale, our bond anticipation note sale, that you authorized at the last meeting. And the lowest interest rate that we got was 2.15% from TD Bank. And so you just signed the last of the closing documents today. This is higher than last year, but, interest rates are going up, from every bank. So we got four bids, and, TD Bank was the lowest.
Right, this was for
Bond anticipation notes, it's two
the bands,
something, yeah,
so we're up at 2 and change now.
2.15.
Out of curiosity, what were the other bids? Do you remember offhand? It's not important, I'm just curious.
One was 3. Interestingly, TD Securities, I think, was bid against TD Bank. And they came in at like 2.75, I think.
Wow.
One was 3, Investors, I think, was 3, and then there was one that I can't remember.
I'll be
that
honest, I was surprised it was as low as 215, but.
Can we get Randy to put together a list of how much we have in bands outstanding, and maybe a history of the last 2 years or so of interest rates?
Good idea.
We may need, we may need to rethink the long, short-term strategy on bands, because I know we've been using them a bit.
As has every municipality, no
Yeah,
doubt.
no doubt. It's the normal course of business, but
That's all I have.
Thank you, Nancy. So let's go right into old business, new business.
Well, a couple things. One,
What, okay.
yeah, no, one, I know obviously Memorial Day is coming up. People have flags they need to retire. There's a bin in the DPW, I don't think it's full now, so, but more people need to know about it. You need to retire flags. There's a bin in the DPW lobby. Just walk right in, it's on your left by the stairs. You don't need to make an appointment, just go and do it. I guess I give a DPW report to an extent, if you want.
Sure.
There's mulches available. There's a huge pile back there. I think they've already delivered over 50 loads or booked 50 loads, so if you need mulch, please go get it. It's free to residents, take as much as you want. If you want to get a dump truck dropped off, just make a call down and make an appointment, they'll deliver it to your house. And also, they're getting ready up for the lake opening this weekend, which I know you'll talk about later. So they've set up for the lake. They drained it, filled it, set up all the, I guess the obstacle course and the docks. So that's what's going on there. Oh, the other thing, my old guy and I talked about, and probably all of us have gotten approached in the last week. Now that Berkeley Heights and New Providence are up and running with the veterans banners, we get a lot of people asking us, are we going to do that in our town? So the answer is yes. We're in the process of doing it. Clearly, it's not going to be done in the next 2 or 3 days from Memorial Day. However, Barbara Grillo is running the program, and I give you her email. She said, have anybody email me with questions or if they want to add a veteran to the banner, and she can give you information. Her email is beg, B-E-G 51 at AOL.com. Beg51 at AOL. It's Barbara Grillo, Grillo. She is spearheading this effort with the committee she formed, and they will be handling the veterans banners. So hopefully we can have them up for Veterans Day in November, and then obviously keep it going for Memorial Day and Veterans Day every year.
Thank you, Matt. And I would add to that, along with Barbara Grillo, she asked me to mention Sue Schumann has helped her with that. And they've raised, in just 3 weeks, over $3,000 from the businesses in town. The businesses in town, everybody knows, are very generous. Their goal is $5,000, and then they'll proceed from there. So I want to thank Barbara and Susan for the work they've done there.
Oh yeah, we do have some, I forgot. We just recycling. Need to update a little information on recycling.
On you go.
Yes, actually, we've been told we're doing an excellent job recycling as a town as a whole, the residents. Just a reminder, and a lot of people don't know this, is when you recycle a bottle, if you have this water bottle here, soda bottle, whatever it is, take the top off of it, because they can't recycle it if the top's on it. So when you put the recycling, just separate it out, and then they can recycle. Otherwise, it goes, what do they call it?
So
Residual?
yeah, it's called residual. And just to interrupt you, Long Hill has a 15% residual rate, rate. So that means that 85% of what you're putting in your recycling cans is good and recyclable, but 15% is not. And that 15% goes right in the garbage. So Matt's going to talk about what is recyclable and what's not.
I'll give you more. Obviously, plastics, number 1 through 7 on the bottom. As I said, take the cap off the bottle, please. All kinds of metal, aluminum, the cans you get with soup cans or vegetables, things like that. Bring them. However, if you do have aluminum, I encourage you to bring it down to the DPW. I talked to firefighter Wanamaker last week. He said the container is almost full, and each time they fill it up, it's between $200 and $250. They donate to St. Barnabas Medical Center burn unit. So please, if you have aluminum, instead of putting it in the recycling, bring it down to the DPW and put it in the trailer. It goes to a great cause. All kinds of newspaper, magazines, paper, whatever you got. I don't care if there's a little window in it, throw it in there. Don't put books in with hardcover books. They won't take that. Food containers, juice boxes. Let's see, recycled food boxes include juice boxes, egg cartons, ice cream containers, milk cartons, and cereal and pasta boxes. They always say don't put the pizza box in. I personally do. Let them sort it out. But if there's no grease on it or anything like that, then they'll recycle it. Not to recycle, plastic bags. Obviously, ShopRite and a bunch of other retailers, if you want to recycle your plastic bags, I call it the bag of bags at my house. It's a bigger plastic bag. I put all the other little plastic bags in. Then I bring it down to ShopRite and put it in the recycling thing when I go shopping on Sundays. The other thing, greasy food containers, as we mentioned. Plastics without numbers, plastic food wrappers aren't gonna cut it. Construction debris, yard waste, some of this is pretty obvious. Food and liquid waste, don't put in there. Scrap metal, again, if you have scrap metal you wanna get rid of, I know Boy Scout Troop 56 will collect it for you, or you can bring it down to the DPW and they'll take it too. So there's things to do for that. Or on junk done, what's it, bulk day, you can put out the bigger stuff, like my friend put out a dryer the other day. He didn't even know he could do that in town. Toys, they don't want dishes or mirrors, ceramics, light bulbs, another thing. Light bulbs, you have those fluorescent light bulbs, the DPW recycles them too. So down in the container where they have the styrofoam, bring them down there. Styrofoam, the kind we take, I just brought some down this week. Bring them down to the DPW in the sheds. We have a great styrofoam recycling program, it's really taking off, and I applaud all the residents for taking advantage of it. Clothes, shoes, don't put them in plastic straws. That's been in the news lately. That's a big problem for everybody. They don't want the plastic straws. I just found that out today, so I learned something too. So put them in the garbage. Any other questions? Direct to Tom Sweeney at the DPW. Thank you.
And if I could just
ahead.
add that the biggest thing that people put in recycling that is not recyclable is diapers, used diapers. It comes as a surprise, but that is the one thing that people put in the most, and they are not recyclable. So please dispose of your diapers elsewhere. And the other thing is, and I learned this, you know, how they tell you to clean out the peanut butter jars or the shampoo bottles or whatever. And, you know, you kind of rinse it or whatever, and then you put it in recycling. That is not good enough. They have to be clean and dry. And, you know, shampoo bottles actually take you like 10 minutes to rinse out because there's all that shampoo in there. But that's what their motto is. It is empty, clean, and dry. So I know that it's asking a lot to dry out your milk cartons or whatever, but that's what the new motto is for recycling. It's empty, clean, and dry. If you can do that, that would go a long way in improving recycling in Long Hill. You're doing very well, but if you can get that 15% residual rate down lower, then the better.
Anything else to say?
Bruce Cornell? So let's go right into announcements. As Matt already mentioned, Memorial Day Parade is Monday. I think the email said line up at 9:30, but I encourage people to get there a little earlier than that so everybody can get in place. I just checked the weather. I keep saying a little prayer. Everybody out there, please say some prayers. It still looks a little iffy, but Lisa Scanlon, and thank you, Lisa, who is organizing everything again this year, said the plan is to proceed as long as there is no thunder. So the parade will take place barring thunder, but either way, the service, which takes place right outside Central, will take place as always. Dennis?
Long Hill TV for any last-minute announcements.
Thank you, Dennis. So Long Hill TV will give announcements as to whether the parade itself might be postponed.
Can we put that on Facebook as well?
Yeah, for sure, we can put it on Facebook. But the service,
Banner on Facebook too?
excuse me?
The Veterans Banner information, please put that on Facebook, so people.
Nancy, would you mind? And that would be great. Dennis, thank you. And please remember the reason for Memorial Day. It is a very solemn occasion. We honor those heroes we have lost. So please, I strongly encourage everybody to come out if they are around on Monday. There's an event, the Great Swamp Watershed Association, which is a very critical organization to this town. Bruce, I think half the town is, nearly half the town is open space.
Yep.
A good chunk of that is, of course, the Great Swamp. For those who don't know, 2/3 of the Great Swamp is in Harding, 1/3 is in Long Hill, even though Chatham Township and Chatham Borough, there's a small residual in those sections, but the Great Swamp is critical to Long Hill, and it's critical to every town because of the watershed. The water we drink comes from that watershed. So anyway, they have an event on Sunday, June 10th, 1 to 5 p.m. It's a music festival. It's taking place at Hartley Farms Polo Field, which is 9 Hartley Farms Road. For those who don't know that is on the National Historic Registry. So it's an amazing property, and it looks like it'll be an amazing day. It's a music festival. There's a couple of bands. We're going to advertise that somehow. I don't know quite how we're doing that yet. I know an email was sent out by Miss Sue Collins, and I appreciate that. Say that again? It's up already?
TV, it's on Facebook.
Dennis, thank you for doing that, and thank you to the CAC committee for accommodating that. It's $20 in advance, $25 at the gate, 10 students, 13 and under are free. For those who are 21 and over, there will be beer and wine. And last, the primary election is June 5th. Polls open at 6 a.m. Please do your civic duty and vote. At this point, I'd like to open up the meeting to the public, remarks and statements pertaining to any matter, not just what was discussed tonight, any matter that's on your mind in respect to the other residents that are here and the residents that are watching at home. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. So at this point, I open up the meeting. Carol, you need no introduction, but you know the drill.
For the record. Good evening. Does this work, you guys? Okay. Good evening. My name is Carol Prasa, and I'm a member of Long Hill's Historic Preservation Advisory Committee, known as HPAC. I spoke in front of you 2 weeks ago in response to that evening's mayoral, I can't say that word, announcement that the Historic Society, which is a private club, would be presenting a proposal at this evening's meeting. At the time, I suggested that the club first present to various groups who might have significant input in the matter. I hope you understood that I was speaking that night somewhat off the cuff, speaking on my own behalf. That was the only possibility, unless you have a time machine hiding somewhere back in this building. HPAC has not been scheduled to meet, nor has it met since the announcement that evening. At your last meeting, I suggested that you reconsider the timetable on this matter until appropriate groups, such as HPAC, has had an opportunity to meet and hear the club's proposal and make recommendations on the matter. I also mentioned that HPAC and the Historic Club have formed a joint subcommittee whose purpose is to discuss possible space for additional historic displays. I stated that, and I quote, "We met one time 3 months ago, and the Historic Club has not been available for a second meeting." I need to correct that statement. Mr. Cornish, town historian and chairman of that committee, informed me that he is assuming responsibility for the fact that we have not had a second meeting. If the chair and the Historic Club are available to meet in June, it will be 3 months between the meetings. In addition, there are other groups in town who should pre-hear the Historic Society's proposal and have an opportunity for questions and input. 2 groups that come to mind are Long Hill's Recreation Department and Library Board, and I'm sure there are others. The Recreation Department should have an opportunity to express its needs, plans, and hopes for the building. Also, the Historic Society has housed their archives at our public library since its construction. It was the hope of several members of the Library Board of Trustees, on which I served during the planning of the new building, that the inventory of the Historic Society's archives be available on our library catalog, hence on the Morris Area Information Network. With the changing times of information availability, public libraries are being encouraged to redefine themselves, and this type of collection, which often contains information that is not available anywhere else, is exactly the type of collection local libraries are generally encouraged to house. Mr. Mayor and members of the Township Committee, thank you for your time, patience, and consideration on this and all issues which come before you. Thank you. Good evening.
Carol, as always, thank you for your eloquence and well-spoken remarks. I'm more than willing to meet, although perhaps you guys want to do it on your own with the Historical Society and HPAC. If you'd like the mayor, deputy mayor, or one of the committee members, the liaison to HPAC to attend, that's fine too. We're not moving forward with anything, so I don't want to, if I gave the impression we were moving forward without input, and thank you for recommending. It would be nice to have the Recreation Department, to have input, and perhaps, and the library, maybe if we all are in the room at the same time. I mean, I must admit, I like the idea of a historic building having some historic items there. But I haven't thought it through. It just makes sense, and on some level, it still makes sense. And we talked about the old portion of the library tonight, the old schoolhouse. If we find a tenant and it's worth it, I would support that. I can't speak for the others. But if not, I mean, maybe one of those rooms would be a good location to store some of the archives. I don't know. So I think the dialogue between members of HPAC and members of the Historical Society and other groups in town, like you mentioned, Recreation and the library, would be welcome. So I'd be honored if I were invited to attend this meeting as an observer. But, so, I mean, I will speak,
To Fred Rossi.
okay,
He's the chair of our committee, so you would have to set it up with him.
okay.
Unless you do have that time machine, then I can do it then. Thank you.
Carol, thank you as always. I don't see anybody racing to the mic. You don't need to raise your hand. But Dennis beat you.
I'm sorry, I missed a lot of the discussion about the intersection of Long Hill and Mountain. Was the problem eastbound traffic on Long Hill turning into Mountain?
Yes.
No.
No, east-west. East-west, right?
Well, hold on. So the original part was the issue with traffic going down Lackawanna? So,
No, he's talking about
I'm
this
up at
one.
Long Hill Road.
oh, sorry, you're up,
It's the,
okay, sorry, different.
you know, as you go
intersection, right, Long Hill.
east-west, where Myersville comes in from the north and
Yeah.
east-west, there's this section to the right, which is township-owned property.
Right.
And Dennis, if you want to have a copy.
That's
It's
you're
blind.
heading eastbound on
Long Hill, correct. You're stopped at the
But
stop sign.
that's not the serious problem. The serious problem is heading westbound on Long Hill, turning into Mountain, which is a hairpin turn, and that's private property blocking with trees blocking that visibility.
But it's not blind.
It is blind. It's absolutely blind. It's terrible. Westbound on Long Hill.
I know what you're
You gotta
talking.
snake around to get onto Mountain. That's the that's the turn that needs the work. And I don't know how you do that because that's not a township-owned lot. The eastbound is.
Dennis, if I could interrupt for just a second, to be clear here, we're not talking about the roadways, we're just talking about visibility.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm talking about, you can hardly see what's going on there.
So
We
the-
went through this discussion about 3 or 4 years ago when the Great Swamp National Wildlife wanted to put a sign, a directional sign. And the question was, how far down the hill do you have to put it? Because it points straight through the intersection. And at the time, there was a great deal of studying by the police and beautification committee and so on as to just where that sign should go. But the net result is you can barely see the sign. You can barely see anything if you're headed westbound on Long Hill and looking down the hill, down Mountain Avenue.
Lord knows that entire intersection is a challenge, but I think Bruce is, what
Yeah, well,
what you're implying is right. That intersection is here to stay. We're just trying to make it as,
We'll take a look at that as well. How about
The
that?
turn
I know
from
what he's saying.
eastbound Long Hill onto Mountain is easy. It's a soft turn and it's always clear cut.
It's not the turn, it's going straight.
Visibility.
It's going straight.
Trees.
It's when you want to go, if you're heading east on Long Hill Road and you're stopped at the stop sign, you can't see what's coming up the hill. You have to keep slowly sticking your nose out before you can get a clear line down that hill.
Yeah, but westbound is much worse because you're looking over your shoulder at the hairpin turn. That's,
That may be, I'm.
Well, I mean, you
Yeah,
got a traffic advisory committee, have them take a look at it, have them go out and take
we will.
pictures.
We will.
Well, we have one here. And you're right, that's not great either. We can quibble, oh, no, east-west is worse, no, they're both bad. So we're going to try to make the best of a challenging intersection.
And something you all didn't know, the traffic light at the intersection of Valley and Mountain was installed in 1955, which means for almost 65 years, it hadn't done the job we want it to do.
November. That's the end, that's when funds will be available.
How much did it cost, Dennis?
Mario Bonacorso, Gates Avenue.
Sir, could you
I
spell
have
your
a
last,
question.
excuse me, before you start, can you please spell your last name?
Bonaccorso. I have a question on the resolution 18-174. Okay, on page 9. It states here that the emergency purchasing procedure may not be used unless it's the need for the goods or services could not have been reasonably foreseen. How could that be, reasonably unforeseen? To my understanding, Long Hill lost their S3 operator 8 months ago.
No, we had,
You
we
had an
somebody-
S2 operator that was operating the plant presently.
He was given permission by the DEP to operate as an S1 operator.
And which he can, for an S3 plant, you're allowed to operate with an S2 operator's license for 2 years.
Okay.
After that, you have to hold the license that's needed for the plant. However, good practice is to have a backup operator available.
If I could finish answering the question. So we had a backup operator who we paid an annual fee if we needed him. We did not need him.
And did he come to the plant the same day that
Yes,
that
he did.
he was there?
Yes, he did.
I was under the
and
impression that the plant didn't have an operator for 2 days.
That is not true.
Well, that's the information
It didn't
I
have
picked
it
up.
for one day. The day after, we got a call from the DEP because they are required to be notified when the operator leaves. We called the company and they came out that day. So we planned on the S2 operator becoming the S1 operator. He
No,
took the-
S3.
I'm sorry, the numbers are wrong. Anyway, becoming getting the license he needed to get. He took the test in April. We don't know if he passed or not because he quit. So it was unforeseen. We had plans to have the correct license in place. We had backup. We did not have any gap except for the rest of the day after he left.
But the past practice that was there was that they had an inside employee who was a backup operator. You had 8 months to put somebody in place, at least to follow up the S2 operator that was there. And that wasn't done. So if the S2 operator happened to get up and leave, you would still have an operator in-house to take care of it. So in other words, progression planning, okay? Getting somebody ready to fulfill the position, okay, which that was not done, all right?
So we had an ad out on the League of Municipalities website for a month for operators. We got 2 resumes and neither of the people were qualified. So it's not that easy to get people. We had the person who left who was in line to become the operator. As I said, he took the test. He took the test twice. The first time he didn't pass. We had a backup. It's the company that's running it right now. They were the backup. They've been the backup for, I believe, close to a year.
My point is this, okay? We used to have 5 people working in that department, okay? 3 of them were licensed operators, okay? 1 resigned 5 years ago. That was me, okay? Next guy came up who was an S3 operator. he was able to be the chief operator of the plant. And then you had another person there who was getting his licenses, okay? He achieved his S2. But there was nobody put back in place to fulfill the vacancy in that department. The department was not built back up to where it was.
Okay, so I can't speak to what happened in the past, but we did budget for an additional 2 employees for this year to bring it up to 5-man staff.
But I'm
We
looking
didn't
at, but I'm
count
also
on-
looking at this, that, at $23,760 a month for an S3 operator, that's over $140,000 in the next 6 months.
It's $166,000
You can
over 7
find
months.
somebody for less than that.
Well, I don't know where we'd find them because we put out the ad and nobody applied.
Let me make a suggestion. You have the NJWEA that you can put ads in there for free. You probably do it on the League of Municipalities already. There's the AWWA, okay? These are all people who are involved in the wastewater field. And, eventually you'll find somebody. But you can't just do it with 3
Eventually.
weeks worth of posting. You can't just do that.
Well,
It takes
so-
time.
So the answer is that you're right. Maybe eventually we would get somebody. But the fact is that come May 31st, come June 1st, we don't have anybody to operate the plant. So we need to do this
I
contract in
understand
order
you're
to have somebody
you're in a
for the
pickle
end of
now,
the
and you
year.
have to do what you have to do.
Exactly.
According to the law of the state, I understand that. But I'm just looking at the past time, that could have been avoided.
I've only been here 8 months.
But I just wanted
So-
to state my point.
We operated, last year was challenging, right? We weren't going to get new people to take a job with us while we had a wastewater referendum out there, right? Because nobody's going to take a job and not know if they have a
Not
job.
know what's going to
right?
happen. Understand.
So there was some level of uncertainty
But
around that.
that vote was taken when? Back in?
Well, the vote was in November, the pitch was going on from January, so as soon as it became, and we had
When was the
this,
election on that one?
the election was this past November.
So, all right,
So
so let's
we-
not talk
we-
about August, let's talk about January.
But a year before that, we already had discussions in public, and it was in the paper that we were moving towards putting a referendum to sell the sewer plant.
Yes, I remember.
Nobody's going to take a job with you for that.
I understand
under
that,
those
but
conditions.
after that
Yeah,
didn't go through,
right, and we.
I would assume that the management or whatever, whoever does, will start posting to put the department back to where it was.
We did, but we can only do certain things once the budget is approved. We
Cornell,
can't,
Forgive me.
Yeah.
The last meeting that I saw, the Director of Public Works stood up here and said that he put in ads out for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking months here,
we can't.
after the referendum was failed.
I understand that, but because of the rules and regulations, and Jack, you can opine on this, we can't just decide now to add a staff member if there's no budget for it. There has to be a budget for that position, otherwise.
But you have appropriations for
But we-
$140,000.
But the budget's been passed.
But the budget has been passed. We budgeted for that.
You budgeted for the $140,000
Well-
on professional services.
No,
We budgeted for employees.
we budgeted, yes.
So we budgeted for, as I said before, to bring it up to 5 staff members. So we only have, now we have
You
two
only
and a
have
half
two.
left, 2.5. So we budgeted approximately, say like $150,000 for employees, plus when you add in benefits, there's a lot of extra money beyond the 150. And then we have the operator who left, we have the rest of his salary for the rest of the year. So we will be able to fund this.
Right.
And the thing that we left out is we were discussing, the committee was considering doing what we actually just had to do, which was farming the whole plan out, all the operation, privatizing the entire thing. So if you were watching the meetings, you probably saw that discussion, that they had initially authorized doing an RFP to have a company come in and run the entire plant. Then they changed their mind because they decided that they wanted to see if we could get employees to keep things the way they were. That's when the ad went out. So this was a discussion that we've had as the year has been progressing, deciding what would be the best, the best option for the town. So we went from the possibility of an RFP for, to run the entire plant, to then trying to hire employees, not getting anybody, and then now back to somebody running the plant.
Well, basically, you were looking to, first you were trying to sell the plant.
Well, I'm talking about
That would
this
be,
year.
Right.
I'm talking about
Lease
2018.
the infrastructure to somebody else.
Right.
Okay, then you were going to try to hire an employee?
We budgeted for 5 people this
You
year.
did?
We budgeted for 5, okay, as part of the budgeting process, which was approved at the last meeting. So that funding source for 5 people is in place. However, we weren't getting any applications or any responses to our job postings. So we then flip-flopped to now we're going to start looking at the wholesale outsourcing, but we can't put an RFP like that together in 3 weeks. So we're stopgapping this agreement for the rest of the year to bring a person in so that we have somebody with a license. And yes, it's going to eat, we're going to have 2 employees, and this one position is probably going to eat the salary of 2 because it's a short-term contract. But we have no choice. We have to have the license, right? You know this is better than we do.
I know you don't have a choice, and I know
Right.
you got to do what you got to
Right.
do there. I'm just questioning
Right.
the fact that
But-
the time that was between now
Right.
and the time between last November.
Nancy
So-
just
so-
explained that,
Okay?
Yeah,
That's
so-
what
so
I'm
we-
that's what I'm
so we
talking
and
about.
she answered that question.
We had 4 people last year. When did we lose the 4th?
You had one person retire a while back.
Yeah, but
I
it was
believe he's working
during, it
part-time
was
now.
during the referendum period. So it was
Okay.
probably midsummer, I think he resigned?
You talking
Didn't-
about
didn't-
Kevin?
No, not Kevin.
No, Kevin
The person
left
before
at
Kevin.
last August.
We had 4 a year and a half ago. Somebody left or retired, right?
That was
And then we were down to 3, and it was in the middle of the referendum. Nobody was taking a job with us while the question was, while nobody knew whether it was staying or going, right? And then, when did Kevin Lynn resign?
That was right before I came. So I came in August, so I guess last
So
summer.
Kevin was August.
Yes, Kevin was August.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. So Kevin.
Ask him. He's sitting right there.
Hi, Kevin. Yeah, fair point. Kevin was August, and then the other person just retired or resigned. When was the last resignation?
Vinny, that was
Vinny,
in
right.
April.
Vinny just-
April.
in
Right,
April.
that was April, right? So he was, after Kevin left, Vinny was going to become
And he was asking for help.
the new operator.
And he needed help.
And he needed help, and we were going to give it to him, but we couldn't do anything until the budget got approved for this year, until we put the 5 people onto the budget.
You mean you couldn't hire somebody back in
We
January or
could,
February?
yes, we could have filled the old position, and we would
If we had money in
Yeah.
the budget, we could have filled it.
But that's what we're talking
That's
about.
what I
But
don't
you were
understand.
talking
I
about
mean,
doing an RFP
So
for the
that's what I'm
entire
saying.
thing.
But then we were talking about doing an RFP, and there was a bunch of back and forth and we had these discussions in public, so.
Well, I just
They're
thought
on
that
a
I would
video
just bring up the
somewhere.
question.
It's not an ideal
I'm
situation.
not really getting straightforward answers on it, but you do have issues.
I think the answers were pretty crystal clear, to be honest with you. Nancy explained exactly what happened. I think the answers to anybody who wants to listen objectively understands what was said.
I understand what was said, Mayor. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public?
Kathy O'Leary Millington. I'm a little disappointed the DP is not here, but I think we kind of anticipated that because it wasn't on the agenda, which I think a lot of people didn't come because it wasn't on the agenda. Because perhaps, first of all, she could explain that the Site Remediation and Reform Act that was passed in 2009 means that the licensed site remediation professional does all the testing on the site. They write the remediation plan, they oversee the remediation, and then they certify the cleanup. So the DEP has no involvement in the cleanup of the Tifa site, despite this body's assurances that the DEP would oversee the process.
Well, wait a minute.
And actually, no.
But wait a minute. Doesn't the DEP oversee the LSRP program?
Yes. They do, yes.
So
There's
they
an
do have oversight.
there's an LSRP board
So they do have
that
oversight.
oversees the LSRP program.
Right, so they do have oversight.
Those are LSRPs.
Because
There's
those
no-
people are registered with the DEP. They have to maintain a license in the state of New Jersey, so I would think that
The DEP never sets foot on the
does have
site.
oversight.
The DEP never looks at the documents. The DEP never sets foot on the
Do
site.
you work at the DEP? Do you know that they don't look at the documents? I mean, I'm just
Do
trying to
you?
understand.
Do you,
No,
Bruce?
that's why I'm asking the question, because you sound like you do know. And
The bottom
Well,
line,
I could-
though,
I could-
regardless, the DEP has jurisdiction. We have no jurisdiction over the cleanup of the
I
site.
know, that's why, I mean,
Well, you've been assuring us that the DEP is going to take care of this and that we shouldn't worry about anything that's going on in the site. Because the
We never
DEP
said
is-
DEP was going to take care of it. We said that it's all regulated by DEP regulations and rules.
And we shouldn't worry.
Well, yeah.
And we should not worry.
And as Mr. Maringo has said, that these are licensed professionals who have to do it and risk their licenses if they don't do it properly. We've been through this before the Township Committee, before the Planning Board, at the court. The judge talked about it.
Well, we also have the unique situation, I hope it's unique, for New Jersey's sake, that we actually have the LSRP is a member of our planning board and is making decisions about the zoning of that particular site.
He didn't vote on those meetings.
He was involved in discussions.
We're not going to talk about a matter that involves a member of the Planning Board.
You did appoint the members of the planning board,
Yes.
and
But they are.
two of you sit on the planning board.
We're still not going to talk about it.
For the record, I sit on the planning board.
Yes.
And in fact, I think I appointed Don Richardson a couple. No, I don't. Bruce, might have been you. I forget it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, he's on the master plan committee also.
He was fully qualified to be appointed.
And his client appeared before this body on May 25th of 2016 and asked for changes to the master plan in addition to changes for the zoning. And then this body appointed him to the planning board as well. Kind of facilitated that process.
wait a minute, I'm not following what you're saying here. So Prism, let's use some names here. Prism came before this body,
Yes.
right? Because we asked them, as a result of the master plan chairman and the planning board chairman, for our guidance. They came to us, they said, we want your guidance on the master plan process, because I was mayor at the time, and I got the emails. So I invited Prism to hear what they were talking about in the context of changing the zoning or supporting multifamily on that site, right? So I don't think Don Richardson had anything to do with the request of the master plan committee or the planning board at that time. I don't think it had anything to do with us hearing what Prism was proposing, because they had proposed that to the planning board probably a year, give or take, before that, to the planning board directly. So some of us didn't get a chance to hear it, so that's why I asked them to come.
There's a letter dated, I believe, May 18th from what was then Prism's lawyer to the Township Committee, specifically requesting changes to the zoning and changes to the master plan so that they could develop the property in the manner that they were desiring.
Right, but that's not why I asked them to come. I asked him
I
because at the
didn't talk
time,
about why you asked him to
the
come.
master plan chair and the planning board chair wanted guidance because they were working on the master plan document. and
The issue
wanted
isn't why
to
you
know
asked them to come.
the
The
consensus
issue
of the
isn't why
board.
you asked them to come. The
We're still-
issue is that they
So
were
that's
asked.
why they were asked to come.
Excuse me.
1 second, please.
Excuse me. We're not going to discuss any potential conflict of interest on the planning board. You can say whatever you want on the public record, but we're not going to discuss something that involves a semi-autonomous body and one of its members.
On May 14th, John Bramnick was in Basking Ridge talking about affordable housing. And I happened to go to that meeting. I did talk about this issue. I will be following up with him and his chief counsel on that. Interestingly, there's a package of 8 different bills to modify affordable housing. And in speaking to Kevin Logan, he let me know that one of those bills
I'm sorry, who's Kevin Logan?
is the chief counsel for John Bramnick.
Thank you.
That one of the items, one of the issues in one of those bills was that they would remove Superfund sites from the SRRA. So John Bramnick believes that the Superfund sites should not be a part of this LSRP program.
That may be his opinion, but that's not the law.
But we still shouldn't worry.
You can worry if you want. We can't do anything about it. That's what we have said repeatedly.
Actually, I have a couple questions for you. Do you agree with me that Jersey City and Newark has more contaminated sites than our town and they're pretty bad?
I don't live in Jersey City, and I don't live in Newark.
I'm just asking you a question in general. You live in New Jersey.
Yeah.
You're aware that they develop in Jersey City a lot of contaminated sites. They put residential housing on it, correct?
I don't agree with that either.
You don't? Do you know
No.
a guy named Phil McGovern by any chance, a lawyer? Did you ever hear
Yeah,
that
I do.
name? What?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and he works as a managing partner at Connell Foley, correct?
Yes, he does.
And Connell Foley, I read an interview with Mr. McGovern, that they've redeveloped 60 to 70% of Jersey City. You don't disagree with Mr. McGovern's statement, do you?
What's the point of your question?
I'm saying that he gave a statement or an interview that he said that Connell Foley, and the whole thing was how he's from Jersey City and how proud he is to be
Does Connell
redeveloped.
Foley have anything to do with Tifa site?
I'm just asking you a general
Does Connell
question.
Foley have anything to do with Tifa site?
I'm asking you a general
Does Connell
question.
Foley
We
is-
have to sit here and listen to you, so now you can answer my question.
No, I don't have to answer your question.
Okay, well, I'll make a statement then. So Connell Foley, they basically developed 60 to 70% redeveloped 60 to 70% of Jersey City. And I've lived in Jersey City. The mayor actually owns property and grew up in Jersey City. And I think everybody agrees that there's contaminated sites in Jersey City where residential, retail, and all different kinds of things are done, which is a fact. And I've also, if I remember correctly, your husband's come to this meeting before and said on the record that he's a construction attorney at Connell Foley. You
And your
dispute
point
any of
is?
that?
Your point is?
My point is this, you have no problem getting money from Connell Foley, who does redevelopment in Jersey City on contaminated sites. That's it.
You have no idea.
I'm just stating, that's what I read. And unless Mr. McGovern was not being honest when he said they've redeveloped 60 to 70% of the properties, which I don't think he was not being, I have no reason to doubt him. That's all I'm saying. I'm
And
done.
did he say that they were all contaminated and they weren't uncontaminated when he did it? They do these properties before
I don't know,
2009?
you can ask him, you know him better than I do.
I do.
Then ask him.
I don't see what the point is.
I'm done.
I believe our township attorney said if you'd like to make a statement on the record about your concerns about the Tifa site, feel free. By the way, John Bramnick and I are good personal friends. I've spoken to John dozens of times about COA. And there's nothing that the legislature can do now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, to affect this round.
Probably not, but even if they could, the minority is not going to be able to do much.
I brought up the affordable housing sites in conjunction with the fact that the affordable housing sites are being developed on contaminated property. And oftentimes what happens is that a cap is simply put over as is being done right now in Belleville, that a cap is just thrown over the contamination, and the contamination is left, as we did with the mound.
But Kathy, as hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sites in New Jersey are being done, I mean, this is not unique. You make it sound like the Tifa site is unique. Hundreds and hundreds of sites under the auspices of the DEP are being developed.
Is the DEP going to come back and answer our questions?
I will
At another
post,
future date?
the DEP's statement will be on the website. Everybody, you included, are welcome to read it. It's pretty crystal clear. And that statement will be for the record.
And we're not going to do anything about the conflict of interest on the planning board.
That's not our,
It's not our prerogative.
And where do I go to address
what,
that issue? The
let's
planning
be
board is not
clear,
going to
what
deal
you
with it.
have identified, what you have identified as a conflict of interest.
Correct.
Okay,
Let's be clear.
all right.
I was told that this was reported to the prosecutor in Morris County. I have not heard from Mr. Knapp. I've been told that it's been reported to the Ethics Board at the state level in Trenton. I don't know if anybody else has heard from the Ethics Board. I'll leave it to the experts.
So we're just
And
going to
we're
wait.
not gonna comment.
We're going to wait until the Trenton gets around to it.
That's who's in charge of it. That's who has jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you.
Any other member of the public? Good evening.
Good evening. Pam Ogins, OGNS, Millington. I'm also disappointed that a DEP representative isn't here tonight. Well, let me tell you about a conversation that I had on March the 19th with a retired chemical engineer who worked for more than 25 years as a project engineer for cleanup sites for the federal government. I have shared with him the first 37 pages of the PASI report, and you're familiar with the report. Excuse all my handwriting all over it. And he reported some comments to me. The EWMA preliminary assessment site inspection report that is dated October 15th states, based on the results of the site inspection, 7 of the 20 areas of concern, also referred to as the EOCs, that remain on the site require further investigation. This was October of 2015. My question to the DEP: was any further investigation done about those 7 areas of concern? The pockets of asbestos fill, which is area of concern number 1, are probably widespread throughout the property. This is in the report. The property refers to all 12 acres, not just the 4.5 that are referred to as the Superfund asbestos dump site. The entire site needs to be considered, as has been discussed, asbestos contaminated. Also in the report that was read by the chemical engineer, that 1 of 2 30,000 underground storage tanks, also referred to as USTs, is known to have leaked with evidence of contamination, and that's AOC number 2. TEC was identified in the groundwater, exceeding groundwater quality standards. This is referring back to the October 2015. TEC was identified. This is in the document on pages 14 and 19 of the EWMA preliminary assessment and site inspection. And that report states, nevertheless, NJDEP issued a no further action for the underground storage tank closures that were done on November 28, 1994, indicating an assumption that the TCE would be addressed as part of the National Priority List, aka Superfund site work. This was not addressed. was not addressed in the Superfund site work that was done. The chemical engineer that I spoke to, highly qualified, felt that the lack of any follow-up by the New Jersey DEP was inexcusable. While the property was owned by TIFA and rented out to chemical operations, there needed to be oversight. That's opinion. Also the opinion of the chemical engineer. There is not evidence that this was done adequately. The report, the EWMA report, noted on their site inspection on June 27th in 2013 that one of 3 unlabeled 55-gallon drums had stains on the side of the drum. They were on the concrete beneath it. The report on page 16 states that the drums should be removed and disposed of properly. Has this been done? Has anyone checked? Do we know? Is it still a hazard? Is it not? The EWMA report noted also, again on June 27th, 2013, that there were 5-gallon containers of multiple hazardous materials in an abandoned laboratory that had been out of use for some time. Also found were materials most likely left over from when National Gypsum Company Asbestos Manufacturing vacated the site in 1975, almost 40 years earlier. Containers of liquid showing evidence of corrosion. The EWMA report states that these materials needed to be disposed of in accordance with federal, state, and local regulations. Has this been done? Do we even know? And why were these never identified by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and corrected? It's the opinion of the chemical engineer with his extensive field experience in the field that prior to any action concerning this site, there needs to be 2 cost estimates to remediate this site. One by a company chosen by the developer, which we know is EWMA, and one by an independent environmental contractor who is focused on quality assurance. Another recommendation he made was 2 timeframe/schedule estimates to remediate the site. Again, one by a company chosen by the developer and one by an independent environmental contractor. He recommended that there be proof of, by the developer of sufficient funds for remediation. Just as an example, he shared with me that there currently is a remediation being done by the Army Corps of Engineers that was estimated to be $25 million. They're now entering their 3rd year of remediation at that site, and the cost has exceeded $150 million. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any other member of the public? Seeing none? I believe none. Going once, twice, motion? I didn't make the motion, somebody else has.
Second.
You actually can.
I can?
As a voting
Then
member.
I made the motion to adjourn.
As a voting member of the Township Committee.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you, those at home. Please remember Memorial Day Parade on Monday. Line up around 9:15, right at Mercer and Main.